Welcome back, everybody. We are together in the same space, which makes us so happy. And we can see each other because we are recording also. So we just keep getting close to the screen. But anyways, welcome back, everybody. Chubbs is here too. We're all just happy as can be. And today, while the vibes are high, we're going to talk about our little timeline, our 20s versus our 30s, what we've learned, how we've grown, some hilarious glow up situations, and everything in between. So come on along with us and think about what your personal development has been like over the last 10 years. Maybe you're between 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s. Either way, it's a great moment for self-reflection. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
I'm so happy to be in the same room.
That was a great intro.
Oh, thanks. What is the most significant difference you see in yourself from your early 20s and now into your early 30s?
Yeah, we are just diving right in.
We really are.
The most significant change I've noticed is my ability to regulate my emotions and find balance amidst maybe like mental turmoil or like struggles and things. I think one of the things like I've tried to do is to be functional in discomfort and distress. And there have been many times when I've been uncomfortable and stressed and not a like functioning human who needs to like eat, sleep, wash, repeat.
Yeah.
So just balance, I think, for me.
Yeah. I mean, if you're functional in your discomfort in your 20s, are you really in your 20s? Because I feel like you're still learning what is uncomfortable at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that probably sits with a lot of people.
And you're still learning what's functional for you.
Right.
And what you need is different.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier, I'd just go to sleep drunk, wake up, hungover, pop up,
onward,
go to work at 5 a.m., run to work because I couldn't find my car keys.
Oh my God.
Like if that happened to me now, it wouldn't happen.
I would be so embarrassed. Yeah, I can relate because I can remember us doing that. I can remember doing that in college, but I can also remember even when I first met Troy, like 24, 25, and I remember we went to a concert, like one of the first things we ever did together. We went to a concert. We were up until like 3 a.m, absolutely spammed, and then got in my car at 6:30 and drove into work the next day. I had on the same tie-dye t-shirt that I wore to the concert the night before as a professional. Yeah. And he still works for that company. How did that happen? So,
well, good thing he's rocking his 30s. Is he 30 yet?
Yeah, he turns 31 on Tuesday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Troy.
Happy birthday, Troy.
Well, good thing he continued on in that role. And
I know, but like, how did we
didn't
function?
Get run out of town because you showed up.
How did we do that?
I wonder if it's still recording this.
It is.
Yeah.
some recording faux pas. It's different when we're together, guys, but still, yeah, I have absolutely no idea how we used to function in that realm.
Well, same question to you though. What do you think has been some of the most significant differences? You have Chubbs.
Yeah, well, Chubbs keeps me sane. I think probably most significant would just be my relationships with people. Like, I think that when I was in my 20s, I wanted what we had in high school still, but I had less trust than I did in high school. So like I wanted a large group of friends, but I also hated everyone. So it was like a weird pull between in my early 20s. And then the older I got, the more I understood, like, I don't really need a large group of friends. I just need a group of people around me that accept me for who I am and have like-minded interests and views of the world. Just because someone's been your friend for, X amount of years doesn't mean that there's still room, what's the saying where it's like, they might just be a chapter and not like part of your entire story, which is totally fine. I think it's really hard to let go of some of those people, but I think my relationships with people is probably the most significant thing where I'm just like, if you got to go, you got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, we were still learning. I'm still learning who I am, but I have a much more like firm foundation of it. And I think about that with relationships too. Like those people probably didn't fully know who they were.
Mhm.
I was doing a little pre-researching, and like your prefrontal cortex isn't fully mature until like mid-20s, which controls planning, prioritizing, generally making good decisions. So if you're friends with people who are,
Not making good
not making good
decisions.
decisions, you're not, you don't know what that even looks like.
Yeah.
It's just like hard to form those kinds of bonds. I
Yeah.
think that at least that we have now.
To be fair, when we were younger, we were just talking about this. My mom, before we left the house, she used to always say,
Shout out Beth.
have fun, make good decisions. And she still says it. And I'm in my 30s now. But I think, I mean, that's such a good point too. Like a lot of the time I think about how our brain formulates in terms of men and how like they're not as developed as women are. So
Mhm.
really like until men are in their early 30s going into their 40s, like they literally cannot function in the same way. But I've never really thought about it in terms of like how your brain differentiates between your 20s and your 30s, and then you go into your 40s and 50s and 60s, and it just does it keep growing? I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Like some things are harder to learn as you go into your 30s. Like you can still learn, like you can teach an old dog new tricks. It just might take longer. But yeah, I think generally like we have these things going on in our brain that we've either worked through or we're okay with. And so it's just like easier to be yourself and form genuine connections with people, because maybe you understand the connections in your brain a bit more. And then that's just like brain. But when we're talking about body, like my body has changed.
That shit hurts.
Since I was 22.
We're sitting on the floor right now while we record this, guys, and let me tell you, it's going to be a long way up. Like it hurts so bad. Why does it hurt?
Yeah.
Do you ever get frustrated though? Because I can catch myself, like, I think about some of the hikes that Troy and I did in our early 20s, and I think about like the way that we hike now, and I'm like, man, we used to do so much more, and now I just cannot maintain it, and it kind of frustrates me because I'm still of the mindset of I want to do all these things while we're here, because who knows when we're coming back, but also I physically cannot anymore.
I think that's a really great like life outlook. It's just like I want to do whatever I can as much as I can, but also then there comes that balance piece too. Like I want to do all these things, and also like I know what I can do right now or what I want to do or what I don't really feel like doing, even though it's right there in front of you. But I think in Colorado, like I remember when I first moved there like 10 years ago, and I saw this like 70-year-old couple climbing. And I was just like, dude, these people still got it. And it's probably looks a little different. That it might be a little bit different, but I think I'm so inspired by like hearing, my peak like ski or climb days might not be until I'm in my 30s, which, might be wishful thinking. Definitely not true in the sense of like our bones are not as malleable and like rubbery as they were before our 20s. But it does give me hope. Like I get to still create some of those things going forward. And also, like I don't weightlift every day as I prepare for high school anymore, or like drink incessantly like I did in college, so there's definitely pros and cons to my 30th year. I guess I'm 31.
Talk about a glow up, because we used to do way too much when we were younger, like way too much. But it's interesting because I was just listening, actually not just, but a few months ago, I was listening to a podcast by my queen, Sophia Bush, and I forget who she was speaking with, but they were talking about how like when they were younger and growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, it was like, this is the prime of your life. Your 20s are everything. Like you're going to miss it when it's gone. And she's like, no one told me when I got to 40 that it was going to be awesome. She was like, I have more money now. I have more experiences now. She even went as far as she was like, I'm hotter now. And I was like, actually facts. Like I looked at her picture side by side and I was like, she's gorgeous. Like for sure. And so I feel like also as a society, we've put this pressure on our 20s to be like, you have to do everything right now, because when you get old, you're not going to do it anymore. And I remember feeling that way in my 20s, like thinking like, oh, this person's doing this, I have to do this, I have to make this much money. And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm kind of like, I'll just do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
You know,
Preach.
like,
And shout out Sophia Bush.
yeah, shout out Sophia Bush for the mindset. But I just think about it in the sense of like, I used to be like, and also just with how many layoffs I've gone through since COVID, I feel like I never want to look back and feel like regret, but I do feel like the end of my 20s, I wasted a little bit because I was so focused on, I have to get a job, I have to have healthcare, I have to do this, I have to do this. When in reality, it was just going to happen when it was going to happen. And I had no control over how that was going to go.
I think that's a huge piece is like, okay, what do I have control over? And then what do I need to let go of control with? Or do I not ever have control
ever
in the first place?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I just talked about that in therapy on Wednesday, so that's really funny.
Yeah, that's a really good insight.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with that. And also, you know, I really did shove a lot of stuff into those 20s. Just like the way that I traveled looks way different than the way I traveled now. You know, I did the whole Europe for some time, living on buses and like living in hostels. And though I might still do some of those things similarly, like I can't really see my body being like happily thrown through Europe, you know, living in off the land and stuff like that.
I remember I got on a plane, I rented a car, I flew to Washington, rented a car, and I drove down the West Coast. And I slept in my car in like Walmart parking lots. I'm really sorry, Mom. I don't know if you ever actually knew I did that. And I did like Washington to Southern California.
It's a long way.
It is a long way. And I mean, in some places I would get like a hostel or an Airbnb, or was it Airbnb back then? I don't know, like a vacancy. And I think about that trip now and I'm like, first of all, that was so fucking dangerous. Who the fuck was I? And second of all, like, I would never now. And I don't know if it's sad. Like, I wish I still have a little bit of 20-year-old Em in me to be able to do that.
Which is great.
Like, I still want the adventure. I just want the adventure with a lock on my door. Like, I want to be safe. You know, and back then I was not thinking about being safe. I was just thinking about getting as many things done as I could.
And I think our brains now, coming back to this like concept of balance, which I think is what my like heart is telling me, is like, yes, I can have aspects of this and also like safety, health, decent sleep, like, you know, not just eating chocolate croissants the whole time I was in Europe because they were cheap and tasty. Like I would be so grumpy.
There's a comedian by the name of Taylor Tomlinson. I talked about her on our last episode, and she talks about like your early 20s. She's like, everybody thinks like the 20s is the time of your life. It's not. She's like, in your 20s, you're garbage. Thinner garbage, but you're garbage. You don't have a gut to listen to yet. That's why you're so thin. And it's like, yeah, a little bit. Like, I think that there was so much development of personality and just life that happened in my 20s. But I look back and I'm like, no wonder I was so like annoying, and my mom would get mad at me, or my dad would be like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
And you're talking about, you know, your relationship with Troy that has been going on for some years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about relationships I had in my early 20s that were not great. You know, that man was not as, you know, mentally well. And that really rubbed off on me and my mental health as well. But now that I think about it, our 20s, we knew each other the whole time.
Yeah.
Like I knew you in the teens, but I've also known you from 20 to now. So that's kind of cool.
I know.
Just like notice.
What
like,
a fun timeline.
A whole decade, right?
But
we've known each other.
We've known each other long. We've known each other almost 2 decades.
Yeah, but
we
like
met when we were 12.
All the 20s.
Yeah, like we had the whole 0 through 9. Yeah. We made it.
Yeah.
But it is really cool because I think that if you have a friendship that can sustain that long of a period of time, you really get to respect the person's growth and remember like what garbage they were and what garbage they weren't. Like, there's parts, like I have such fond memories of our entire friendship, but I also remember some not great memories about myself. I remember some not great memories about you and the things that you went through. And it's interesting going back to like the relationships with people where it's like some people are meant to be in your whole story, and some people are just a chapter, because there's plenty of people that came and went throughout that decade that knew both of us and were friends with both of us that we're no longer friends with. And it's no ill will. It's just
That's what it is.
they didn't have a space in the story anymore. Right. And it's interesting how like the development, it's almost like character development in a story.
Sure.
Yeah. Like character development in a story where it's like you outgrow these personalities, or your personalities grow in different directions, and you kind of spin off in that way.
Yeah. And I think we have more capacity and capability to like, you get to really know one part of yourself. And it's like, great, I love this part of myself. Like now let's explore something else. Or like, oh, this garbage is not working for me.
It's got to
I'm gonna throw that away.
Set it on fire.
We're not recycling that.
Dumpster fire all day.
So it's just cool how like humans have the capacity to, do all these things that we're out here doing.
It's wild. I also think about too, like how I feel like I've always been a health conscious person, because I've always had such not a great relationship with food, and also just really aware of like the environment around me and things like that. And this morning, Alyssa watched me do my skincare routine, which I literally just started because like almost a year ago.
So impressive.
Because I'm getting married. It's not that impressive. To all the beauty gurus out there, you got so much on me, because
I don't know.
I can't do the 18 steps that y'all do. I got about 4.
Well, this is a spectrum. I have none.
But you think about it in the sense of like, at the end of that skincare routine, I put on sunscreen, and I put on sunscreen every single day. I never wore sunscreen in my 20s. I would be like, burning, who is she? Like, it'll turn tan. Meanwhile, now I'm like, what? Melanoma. Like, what are we doing?
I think that I have a lot to move into with that in my 30s and look forward to. Because I do live in Colorado. I'm pretty darn close to the sun, and I only wear sunscreen when I'm like planning to go recreate and not just like walking to work or whatever. So I think that I'm really inspired by your skincare routine.
Thanks.
And it doesn't have to be every single day to be a routine either, like you can still have a routine, and maybe it's every other day, or like when you're feeling up for it or something like that. A little different from like, let's brush our teeth today.
To be clear, we are not beauty gurus. The beauty gurus will tell you to do your skincare every day. But I am here to advocate and say sunscreen every day, because global warming is real, and she's only getting hotter.
Yeah.
And our world, sadly, it has definitely developed over the last 10 years as well. And I feel like anything that you can do to protect yourself as you move forward is something super important.
Yeah. Like the venison curry I just had at Emily's house that was like killed by Troy and, butchered himself. Like that's, I think, really conscientious of the environment. We're not supporting like big meat industries. And
were you going to say big pharma?
I was.
Big pharma.
They put
them
steroids
too.
and stuff into cows, so maybe. But
I just had this comment. It's kind of big pharma though, because it actually all is one circle. If I could go on a tangent for just a moment, I just had this conversation with my dad where I was like, Dad, it's so fucked up. Like, you go to the grocery store, you try to buy the healthy food, but the healthy food still has all these chemicals on it. And my dad has that huge garden, and he's telling me about like these Amish people that they get their seeds from or whatever. And he's like, you go in like their nursery or like their big shed or whatever, and it's just full of chemicals, like that even they're using it, and that's like super against like their beliefs or whatever. So you eat the food that has the poison makes you sick, so that you can go to the doctor and get the medication to fix the thing that they poisoned in the beginning. I hate it here. That's my tangent. But
and I think as someone now in my 30s, I can at least like place that rage and like come back to it instead of just like shitstorm Alyssa, like pissed all the time. I still am pissed a lot of the time, but I have the capacity to be like, okay, this isn't serving me. Like, it's going to be here on the shelf, and I will definitely come back to it probably when I eat my next meal. But I'm going to,
give me 4
enjoy
hours.
life and be present now.
I think that both of us have done a really great job at like, I feel like in our 20s, I know I definitely was, but we reacted to everything. Like, there was no holding of the words, figuring out if it's going to serve you to react. No, like, processing of what's
Impulse
happening.
control.
Yeah, impulse control, none of that. I feel like I was just out here like slapping bitches and
Yeah.
making people bleed
Yeah.
and just really saying hurtful things for the effect of hurting people, because I was mad, and I still have some anger to work through, but I don't think I'm as, I hope you all just heard my dog snore so loud. I don't think I'm as angry anymore, and I think a lot of that comes with like the healing that I've done over the last 10 years, and also just the understanding of like, what is the point of getting mad? Because the person that I'm mad at doesn't really care. I mean, sure, if it's someone that's close to me, but like in the greater sense, I can get mad at Big Pharma all I want, but if I hold on to that stress, it's not going to be great for my body because they really don't give a fuck that I'm
And
mad.
it's not even like a person.
Right.
It's just this entity.
Right. Like nobody that's working in that industry cares that I'm mad. They're going to keep making their money.
Absolutely.
Cleansing breath.
This be true.
This be true. This be true. I think there's just a lot of work that you do in your 20s. I don't think people give enough credit to, you know, people in their 20s. You look at them and they're like, oh, they're reckless, they're young, they don't get it yet. One day they'll understand. I remember people saying that about me. But also, I think once you get older, it's easy to say those things and you don't remember what it was like to be in your 20s. Like, I'm very grateful that that decade of our life happened when it did, because if I was 20 years old right now, I don't know if I would make it. You have to do so much growth and so much processing as you work through your 20s to try and figure out where your life is going to go. And I'm so grateful that social media wasn't what it was when we were 20, because I don't think I would have made it out alive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like in our 20s, you are pretty much just in school, likely, or thrown into a job. And we were kind of trained to like, okay, what are you going to go to college for once high school's over? And then, you know, you're just in school for however long. And then suddenly partway through, you're just like out of this institution that you've been like paying money, getting into debt to go be in. And then you're just free.
Yeah.
But with probably shackles of debt. So it's like, we don't even really have the space to like process stuff as much until we have the space to do it. And then on top of that, like, you know, in colleges right now, they're getting like police officers to protest the peaceful protesters who are protesting really horrible things going on. And I know that these things did happen, you know, in other timelines of American history. But maybe with that social media presence, it's like in your face and
all the time.
All there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially with cancel culture being such a huge thing, like, how do you even use your voice as a tool without offending someone? Like, I'm not saying be homophobic, be racist, be anything like that. Absolutely against that. But how do you use your voice without pissing off the person next to you and actually have a conversation without just these few words that made someone angry being pulled out, placed on social media, and now you're wrong? How do you do that?
I think at least we have the ability to not be like, we're not that famous. We're not famous.
We're not famous. But
like, you know, I was just listening to Rainn Wilson's podcast, and it actually talks about that. And like, he made so much money from The Office that at this point in his career, he really doesn't care if he like is in any more movies. He has enough money, so he can just kind of like explore his metaphysical, you know, spiritual life, which is really off-putting to some people. And like, he goes into the podcast and asks people like, hey, why can't you talk about this? Or like, why don't you use your platform to like address this issue? And a lot of people are just like, we don't want to, you know, get canceled. So I don't really know how you do that except to like be open to listen, ask questions, be curious. I think curious is
be
like
respectful is the biggest thing, because I think part of the reason with cancel culture is it's like everything is inappropriate. Everything is like, you can only look at thing and everybody has to be great. And it's like, everybody's not great. Like, I love women. I want to raise women up. But like, if you're a woman and you do something shitty, you still did something shitty.
Yeah.
And me telling you that you did something shitty is not against feminism. It's just that you're being shitty right now.
Yeah, and you're probably raising shitty kids. Which we haven't even talked about, like,
oh man,
being a mother, because
Yeah.
I am not, except to like 2 cats. But
Yeah.
like, to be a person who didn't like soul search or have the space to do any of that, and then you
Mhm.
have to raise little humans,
Mhm.
you know, we have all this trauma. This is like generational trauma. It's
Mhm.
just really sometimes disheartening, and you know, also encouraging for people like us who are like, yeah, I just like have these goals. I want to keep working on myself. Like, I
Yeah.
really want to put concerted effort into taking care of myself. Like,
Mhm.
what a privilege.
Yeah.
Really.
Think about when you were in your early 20s. I think I already know the answer to this, but when I was in my early 20s, I was never like, oh, I want to get married and have children. That was never a goal for me. And I'm getting married in November, and it still feels like I'm still working through it in therapy, where it's like, I love Troy and I want to spend my life with him. But the idea of Mrs. being in front of my name is very, it's a hard concept for me to accept.
It's also a very old concept.
It's a very old concept. And I just feel like I'm not the girl that traded her chickens so a man can own her. And and even though like that's not what my marriage will be about, it's very hard for me to like disassociate.
Yeah.
But when you were in your early 20s, were you like, I want to get married and have kids one day? Because I feel like a lot of people our age were and did that.
And that might, you know, get a lot of people to not listen, because neither one of us ever were like, I must have kids. No, I think when I was 20, I got my DUI. Like, I went to school for a long time and then worked seasonally for a while, and just was like really not mentally well, because I was just moving all around, like working a bunch, didn't really even have time, didn't have health insurance, didn't have any of those like kind of necessities, really. Yeah, I don't think I really started to like put the pieces of my life together until like end of 20s.
Yeah.
Honestly. So
like we're talking like, I feel like 27, 28, 29 into 30, I was like, okay, now's the time. Like, that was fun, but was it? How much fun was it?
Yeah, it's like early 20s, you get to like learn who you are and actually find what you like and your preferences. And then it's like, okay, now I can like maybe have a little money to spend to like buy that bicycle or, you know, whatever it may be. So.
And if your goal in life is to have kids and get married, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that everybody views the world differently. And if you're a woman this day and age and your only goal is to get married and have children, it kind of defeats the work that we've all done. You should want to get married, have children, and serve yourself. And I feel like that's not necessarily, it's like old school concept is not really in like accepted. But I feel like I watched my mom do that, and that's kind of where it comes from. Like, my mom always wanted to get married and have kids, but she got married, had kids, and still made sure she was a person. She had friends. She went out and did things. She had community around her, and she did it with a handicapped son. And that was not easy. It was also not easy to be a single parent, but she never lost. She lived her life for her kids. My mom would never not do for her kids, but she never lost her self. And I feel like that message in our 20s was like, you got to find a man that loves you, and you got to make babies. And there was no, and have a career, and find what makes you happy in life, and pursue, you know, something that brings you joy. Like, those things weren't like, yeah, get married and have the babies if that's what makes you happy, but also do this for yourself. It was never do it for yourself. And in my 30s, I'm just kind of like, everything is for myself.
Yeah.
It's time to be selfish.
You get to be a little greedy.
Yeah.
You get to be creative. Get to like try things and fail at our own volition. Like, no one's telling us to go out and do that thing. You just get to have the choices. And I think with children, you don't always necessarily get as many choices, at least. It's like, okay, well, the budget calls for this, or like my timeline is I have 20 minutes after I pick them up from school or whatever. So if you are a mom out there, or ever, you know, not if ever have been, if you were ever, if you then you still are.
Yeah. But if you want
like,
to be one.
Kudos to that. And
I could never do it.
I mean, you already chubs.
Yeah, but
and a lot of your friends,
children
in some ways,
children and my friends are different. I just feel like it's a great responsibility to raise tiny humans, and it's a lot of work, and you have to be willing to do that work and not just have children because it's what you're supposed to do, but it's what you want to do. And I think that messaging in your 20s gets really skewed. And I can remember us having friends and them being like, I have to get married because I have to have kids by this age. And I still have some people in my life where it hurts me to hear them say that they want to get married and they want to have kids. And it's like, but do you want to get married and have kids with this person, or do you want to get married and have kids? Like, which one is it? Because at the end of the day, at the end of your life, if you get married and have kids with someone that doesn't serve you or protect you or balance you, was it, your kids are always going to be worth it, but like, was it really worth it? Are you going to be happy with that?
No.
You know, I don't know, because I'm not a mom, but I feel like if I could give advice to 20-year-old Emily, I would tell her to be more selfish than she was.
I like that.
Yeah.
If I had advice to 20-year-old Alyssa, probably tell her to stay safe out there.
Stay safe out there. It's gonna get better would be my other word of advice for both of us. Just it's gonna be okay. I want to talk about friendships in your 20s versus your 30s, because there's this shift that happens and you don't even know that it happens until one day you wake up and you're like, I miss that. And I remember in high school, my early 20s, we lived with each other. Like, we saw each other every day. And then in college, I never left my roommates. Like, they were just everything. And, you know, you wake up in the morning and your friends are there, and you come home from class and your friends are there, and something shitty happens and your friends are there, and you're never alone. And then you get to your 30s and maybe you're with a partner, maybe you're not. But either way, you do have to process that information by yourself. And sometimes I have like this great amount of nostalgia for, I miss it when I would come home. I remember being in my 20s and coming home and all of my roommates would be on my bed in my clothes. And I would be like, do you guys have your own fucking rooms? Like, I love you, but get out. One time one of them gave me pink eye because I was
farted in your face.
No, she had pink eye, and I was like, do not take a nap in my bed today. And she was like, okay. And then I came home and she was in my fucking bed and I got pink eye. But like, that kind of shit would never happen to me now. And I look back on that and I remember being like I loved it, but I was also annoyed. And now that I am 30, I'm like, God, I miss that. Like, I miss that so much. It's such a different way that we communicate as friends. Now you got to schedule time.
Yeah,
you know,
I like.
Well, you have a whole calendar.
I'm also an only child. I also had a very different college experience from you. I went to community college. I lived in solitude a lot of my life. I have no sadness for those times. I love you, Chubbs.
The stars are real today, friends.
So, I mean, I see that, and I just love scheduling time with my friends. I feel like it makes it richer, more valuable. I'm so excited to live with ladies for a weekend. Like, oh my gosh, I would not be this excited if I did this all the time. You know, like I just think there's so much value in making that effort. And you know, we might feel different if we like had kids and like had even less time, but I don't know. I don't have that same like, and it's funny too, because I was like the nostalgia queen when I was in high school.
You were,
like, I loved that social aspect. And then I don't know where it went away so suddenly, or if it was just like always like, you need to be alone. But yeah, I really just kind of like turned off the rest of the world and like went and lived in the woods for a few years.
Yeah. I feel like I went from wanting people around me all the time to really needing alone time and like my own space. I went from like, I miss having the girls around me 24/7, and the nostalgia of it sometimes I still miss. And then I think about it in like who I am in present day, and I'm like, if I came home to their troll asses every day, I would be like, why are the cups not clean? Who was in my bed? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would be irritated for sure. Now I would still love them, but I would be irritated. Whereas like you look at it back then and you're like, man, what a way we used to live. Or I know you didn't, but like at least I did. But you did live like that a little bit because I lived at your house
Yeah.
for a very long
I
time.
loved those times. They
Yeah.
were some of the best times ever.
I would come home. I would go to volleyball practice at like 6 a.m. and come home and just get in Alyssa's bed. No shower, no nothing. And she would be like, "You're fucking disgusting. Go take a shower."
Well, I didn't make the volleyball team, and it was always so hot, and they had to practice in a gym. And so, like, within months of realizing that I didn't make the volleyball team, I was like,
Yes.
I didn't make the volleyball team.
It's so hot outside. It's so hot outside. But yeah, I just think that like your friendships definitely are different between your 20s and your 30s, where like you're in each other's shit all the time, 24/7, like just in each other's faces. And then you get to your 30s and you're like, wow, I really value my own opinion and like my own time and my space to reflect.
I feel like sometimes my relationships were more shallow when I was younger too, just because I didn't even know the questions to ask. I didn't know how to express myself or open up. And so again, like I just feel like my relationships now are so much more rich because I might not see them, you know, they might not live at my house, but when I do talk to them, it's like, how are you really? You know, what's going on? And they actually express to me, and it's, you know, sometimes little mini therapy sessions with each other, but
we do have those frequently. They are nice. It's really nice when your friend is a therapist. It's very helpful. Sometimes she gives you, you know, the techniques that we talk about on the podcast, and sometimes she tells you to pull your head out of your ass.
Yeah, but then also, like, as someone who's not a therapist, like Emily's the one on our Instagram, just out here, like, putting really, like, posing really valuable questions and a lot of, like, good information out on social media. And that's, like, not my form of art, I don't think, like, to share in that way. And so I'm just really grateful that you have that, like, niche and ability to, because even just reading those questions are, like, so self-reflective. And even if I'm not sitting, like, journaling them out, I'm like, what is my feeling about this really in-depth question about who I am as a person? Like, great.
Thanks, friend. So I want to go back to like not knowing what questions to ask though, because I think that's a really powerful statement, especially when it comes to relationships, what you want to do with your life, how you value your friendships. Like, I feel like that's such a powerful thing to talk about, where in your 20s, you don't know the questions to ask. You don't know like what to feel. You kind of feel like everything is this organic experience and, oh, like, it's fine, and you have all this optimism. And I never want to lose the joy that I had in my 20s, but I also definitely approach things differently, and I have so many questions,
which is
all
great.
of the time.
Yeah. I think if some people aren't asked the questions, they just won't share. You know, they won't feel like they have that space. And I think it's like having questions to ask, and also developing this like emotional intelligence where you can tell that something is going on with someone, whether it's just like their body language or they're not as talkative as usual, or they're like really hyper about something, and just like stopping in that moment and being like, what's up? Like, I've noticed this. Like, I see this, I see you, and I want to hear about that. And not just like, here's my list of questions for you. It's like really, you know, knowing who you are as a person, really getting to know your friends, and then like having the courage to be like, hey, I saw that, you know, you were really like, you looked grumpy. I saw RBF.
Yeah. I seen it all the time.
I just went to Europe with my friend Cassie, and I've never traveled abroad with a friend, especially a female friend. And so I could just like really feel when she was like stressed about something. And I've never been in the space to be like, oh, hey, do you want to talk about this? Or like, I see what's going on. Let's like talk about this when we get back to the room or something.
Yeah.
And I think it made for just, again, a richer experience because you're able to bond through like stressful things and talk about them and like, you know, maybe have a few little tiffs here and there and like be on the same page and move forward.
And still have a good experience. Meanwhile, in your early 20s, you're like,
blow up.
You're like, why are you being such a bitch? Or I don't know what's wrong with her.
I won't talk to you for the next day. And in your head, it's like, okay, I'm not going to speak to
I don't know why she's mad at me. I didn't do anything. And it's like, that's fucking insane. If someone's, it's just crazy the way that like communication changes as you grow, for sure. What a great call out. I love you for that.
Lack of just like development of our brains again.
Yeah.
And even like not even talking about just friendships, my relationship with my family was awful. I was so explosive.
Agreed.
I didn't even give my mom a chance
No.
like to even try to ask me questions.
I remember.
So it took just a lot of work and like self-awareness and unlearning. You know, I think some of those relationships can be the most powerful if you like nurture them and
maybe
say
not
you're sorry.
maybe not in my 20s, but definitely in my like late teens, early 20s. I was definitely, it's interesting because you're always the most horrible to the person you love most. And I was really horrible to my mom, really horrible. And now she's my best friend in the whole world. And I just want her to have everything. And I believe that it goes back to that communication that you were talking about, where now it's like, I know how to look at my mom and be like, hi, asking me 800 questions the second my eyes open, it makes me want to smack you.
Yeah.
Please don't do that.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work for me. Whereas like when I was in my early 20s and she would do that, and she would be doing that because I would be doing hoodlum things, and she was worried and she wanted to know what happened and what I was doing and so on and so forth. I would wake up and be like, fuck you, like get out of my face, you know? And it's just such a different, I'm grateful that it's different for sure. Well, yeah.
I was like physically violent when I was younger.
Me too.
Thank God I am not anymore. But
yeah,
you know, I think that there's still like residuals from the ways that we adapted and coped with not knowing ourselves or like traumas that we had. So yeah, shout out to my mom. She loves to remind me of like the times that I hurt her. Not always physically, like twice. Ever. Yeah. Okay, so let's. I'm not.
Let's be clear. First of all, like, Alyssa like, is all of 80 pounds. She's not really gonna hurt anybody.
Not, but like she was like, remember when you threw that pudding cup at me? It's like, you told me the story like 20 times in the past 5 years. I remember. It was terrible.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
But you know what? When I will have to speak to your growth on that though, because when we were younger, like early 20s,
I was a heathen.
Not only that, but if she even started to tell that story, you would be like, shut the fuck up. Like, I know the story. Yeah. And now it's like, yes, mom, I remember. We've told it.
You told me yesterday.
You told me yesterday. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah. And, you know? And even I take it further and I'm like, it hurts me to hear that story. Like, it hurts me that I hurt you. And I'm glad that you can laugh at it now, but I don't really find it funny. Like, I find it kind of sad.
Do you ever look back at the things that you used to put on social media as a young woman? And I consistently every day go back through like my Facebook memories and I'm like, delete that status. Why was I talking like the world was going to end? I was 21. Everything was fine. My boobs were still near my chin. Like they were no longer size.
Gravity.
Like, what is happening? And I just think about just how like everything is the end of the world in your early 20s. Like everything is just going to collapse if it doesn't go your way.
And when you look back, it's like, sure, there were definitely some sad and
for sure
things out there, but like a lot of my most dramatic times, I like had a really cool job. I was working with you at a nursing home. Yeah. Like how
why
stressful was my life really?
Why were we complaining? You're like, life is so hard.
Oh my God.
We have to feed the old people.
I have to work 7 hours today
with my best friend. Meanwhile, this morning we quoted one of our favorite residents at that nursing home. Helen Gregory was her name. If you
I guess once they're dead.
Yeah. If you know, if you're, so HIPAA, but if you're a family member of Helen Gregory and you're listening, we loved her so much.
We did.
We really did.
Yeah. And I think even having those kinds of experience, like, I think we view death a lot different than probably someone who's not experienced it. You know, working in a nursing home as, I think, from like 17 to like 21.
I started at 15 there, and then you came.
And then I was
a year or two later,
like, partially through college.
Yeah,
I think maybe most of the way through college, and just being in a nursing home around so much death and dying, I think it definitely made me a better person.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I also think the way that I handled death, I don't handle death well. Just generally, it doesn't go well for me, which is really weird considering I work with energy. Yeah, but it's just really hard for me. I've never dealt well with it. And I definitely did not deal with it very well in my early 20s. And I still feel like if I would have had the mindset and the resources that I do now, when I was going through those things at that age that maybe I might react even a little differently now. Like I still, grief is just something that I struggle with. It's never an easy thing. And I haven't even had as much as you have had.
You had a pretty rough few years.
Yeah, but it's a little different for you. And I think I really wish there was more resources out there when we were in our early 20s to help us be able to, or like at least knowledge of them, because I'm sure they existed, but we didn't have them.
Yeah, not at all. I have a question.
Yes.
And my question was, I wrote it down. Well, okay, what did you actually like the most about your 20s? Maybe aside from being with your girls in college. What did you learn the most? And then what are you looking forward to in the rest of our 30s?
I love that. What I liked the most about my 20s, definitely my girls. I mean, I can't, but it's just the experience that I had with my college roommates. I look at some of my cousins now and it makes me sad that they didn't have that experience. Like these girls changed my life. They helped.
Still friends with most of them?
Still friends with all of them. They
awesome.
Helped me heal. They helped me find value, find worth. And I miss that camaraderie. It was definitely my favorite part. But also I think my favorite part of my 20s was meeting Troy because he just makes me a better person.
Into that.
Yeah, into that big time. What about you? What was your favorite part?
I think despite how hard it is to have seasonal jobs, I, worked all over the country and really, really dug into my relationship with nature. That's like what I think I took away the most of my 20s is just like how much it heals me. How much like I don't need people as much as I thought I did.
Yeah.
Which it's very important to have community. Let's be real. But like nature sometimes can be your commune, your community. So I think that was like the biggest, most powerful, like happy, sad, all of the above.
Yeah.
Full experience range of emotions.
You were also a person that you were never alone for so long. So even though community is great, it's not like you're saying what I'm saying isn't important. It's just that for your journey, it was really important for you to do that by yourself. And I think that's awesome.
And that taught me my self-worth. Like, I can camp out here and like survive. Like, I can climb up that mountain if I just,
go
eat snacks and go long enough. Like I can do anything I put my mind to if I just like eventually keep doing it.
Whammo. Drink your water, people. Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson that I learned is that I can trust people more than I thought that I did. I still struggle with trust, but I also think that living with those girls and just having that experience helped me recognize that there are people that, outside of the like 4 that I had, not everyone is shit, and there are people that care about you, and the world isn't as dark as you think it is.
I also think that was my biggest like lesson for my 20s. I had like some really big like mental breakdowns, like almost like verge of like psychosis here and there. And I think that was because I did not have any tether to reality. Yeah. It's like, sure, you can go look at nature as long as you want, but like if someone's not talking to you or like reflecting back to you anything, then, you might just like float away. And so I think realizing like there are just like people out there and it's great that they can be your best friends. And also you might just find a person walking down the street who like is a generally good human who might be here to help. Or
well, you might just find someone walking down the street. I will not be finding that. But yes, I see what you're saying. Like it's just like, I feel like our 20s, at least for us personally, there was some really great times, but also there was a lot of darkness. And as we go and grow through our 30s, I just think that the light is shining now more than ever. And as far as like what to look forward to moving forward, I think our 30s are going to be dope. I can't wait. I feel like there's so much of the world to explore still. I feel like we're going to make great progress with our podcast and doing, what is the word?
Getting married.
We are not getting married, but yes. But no, what is the retreats? I was going to say resources, retreats, like things like that. And just really figuring out like, okay, we have this basis that we built in our 20s. We have all these skills that we learned. What are we going to do.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm looking forward to, because I don't plan on working on HR in forever.
Mhm.
I plan on continuing to gain the knowledge, but I don't want to work in corporate America. I want to take everything we learned and find something that's going to like not only make the world a better place, but just fill my cup.
Mhm.
I don't need us to make thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. I just want to be happy. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think same, except the way I view it is like I want to step into my power.
Yeah.
And I want to figure out what that is. And I want it to feel really good. And like you said, just like keep shining my light for myself first and foremost, like for you second, and then like everyone else too.
Me number one, you number two, and then anybody that wants to come along, you're invited. We don't discriminate on Wednesdays. You can wear pink or black, whatever makes you happy.
Hey,
We do have on pink and black. I did not even think about that. But yeah, great discussion today, friend.
yeah,
Just love you.
too. It was so
Oh.
fun just like gazing into your eyes.
We never looked at the screen. We just looked at each other the entire
Yeah, I
time.
wonder how my like side silhouette will look.
Oh yeah, get that jawline crisp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, crisp.
I have been uploading these to YouTube every now and then. I think if you just were to Google like
Soul Sisters.
you probably would find it. It's just there for like I think us to look back on mostly. Like I don't really expect anyone to view our
My mom
my
does.
random YouTube though. Like I hope people are listening to this, but
Yeah.
that is more so like I want to look back when I'm like
Mhm.
70 because I hope YouTube is still out there and I
Yeah.
can view it.
Hey, according to Avery Woods and John the Nurse, YouTube's on a comeback, the upswing. So
For my partner Caleb, it's never taken a downturn. He
we
fucking
love
loves
you,
that.
Caleb. Of course he
That's
does.
his TV.
All right, friends. Well, we thank you so much for joining us today. And like Alyssa said, if you type Soul Sisters podcast into YouTube, you should be able to find our videos on, I think your channel is Spaceless, right? And this episode will be up soon, and we will talk to you very, very soon. Until next time,
We love you.
love ya.
So does Chubbs. I was waiting for the snore.